Hello, my name is Kathy, and today I want to talk about how to make major life changes. First off, it's important to understand that basic human need for stability and security. People like things that are familiar to them because it gives this comfortable feeling of the known. Even if it's a bad situation, you'll find that people will loathe the idea of change. As a matter of fact, the more dysfunctional the current situation is, the more a person wants to keep the status quo. The reason for this dynamic is a simple one. It's fear of the unknown. When a person is living in a really bad situation, their normal day-to-day life is filled with fear. And this concept of striking out on their own to better their situation is almost impossible to consider because they're dealing with Mount Everest amount of fear on a daily basis, and they cannot face adding even more fear to their lives. So they stay, even though they know it's a bad situation. Another scenario is the person that is living what to the outside observer looks like a fine, stable life. They have a reasonable job, but there's nothing exciting about it for them. They have a reasonable place to live, and a reasonable vehicle, and all the rest of things that signify a normal, good life scenario. But the person is in reality far from happy in their present situation. Everyone in their universe thinks of them as having a successful life, but somehow they're not feeling this inside. So, how do you know when a major life change is in order? The first thing you'll notice is that you are experiencing more and more depressed mental states. It starts out with mild depressed feelings and feelings of boredom, where the colors of your world seem grayer, and you take less and less pleasure from anything in your life as it currently stands. Some fixes that people use are to go on a vacation, or get a new boyfriend or girlfriend, or start a new hobby, and so forth. All of these things will help for a little while, but it does not last, and soon the mild depressed feelings begin to deepen. One thing to understand about depression is your body system telling you that you need to make some kind of a life change. The deeper and more severe the depression, the greater the need for change. Sometimes you have a general idea of the change that should be made, but just as often you don't have a clue as to what change should be made. What then? There are some clues that your higher mind will send you. This special knowledge happens to all people. There's nothing magical about it. The trick is to recognize and to understand these communications. Here is how this dynamic works. Depending upon the size of the life change that is needed, you will begin to have these ideas suddenly pop into your mind, seemingly from out of the blue. At first, these ideas will pop into your consciousness maybe once a month or so. Then they start to increase in frequency as you are getting closer to the time that the major life change needs to happen. Very often, these ideas seem absolutely ludicrous. No way in hell could these fanciful ideas pertain to your life. No way could this be a real idea to pursue. As an example of this dynamic, I will tell you about a major life change that occurred for me. I was living in a very small farming community in rural Saskatchewan, Canada. I was a poverty-stricken single mother in my mid-30s struggling to survive. I kept getting these sudden flashes that I needed to move to Phoenix, Arizona. This was ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I was a single mother of 2 young children, struggling to survive. There was no way I could do something like this. Besides that, it was a foreign country, and I knew no one in that area. It was just ridiculous. So I kept dismissing the thought as nonsense. But they kept coming to me with ever-increasing frequency. I was having none of this. I was a logical, and practical person, and with the heavy responsibilities I had towards my children, this was just nonsense. So I instead made plans to move to the closest big city in Canada, which was Calgary, Alberta. I researched neighborhoods and everything you could think of for a logical and well thought out move to Calgary, Alberta. This was the logical course of action, and I was determined to follow through with it. I found a good apartment for myself and my children in a good neighborhood, close to good schools, and I took the apartment and proceeded to box all of my possessions up in preparation for the move. I was expecting a large check, which was to cover my moving expenses and setting up expenses in the new location. But it did not arrive on time. So I waited and called on it, but it was not coming. I had planned the move for the summer months when my children were out of school. I had planned on being all settled in to the new apartment before the beginning of the new school year, and this check refused to come. Time was running out. So I borrowed some money from my aunt to make this move, with the plan that I would reimburse her as soon as the check arrived. That was the plan, all right. I called a moving truck, and between the trucker and myself, we loaded up all of my stuff into the moving van to move to Calgary, Alberta. When everything was loaded, I decided to give a quick call to the apartment manager to find out where I was to pick up the keys for my new apartment. The manager had rented the apartment out from under me to someone else. I was in hysterics at this point. A moving truck, loaded and ready to go, and no place to move to. I learned a very valuable lesson from this experience. If life wants you to do something, and you and your intellectual mind think that another course of action is the better, logical choice, life will do things to enforce you to think again and about your logical course of action. Moving to Calgary, Alberta was the best intellectual and logical decision for my particular circumstance, and yet life did not want me there. So I unpacked my things and spent one more year in this small farming community. It was during that time that I started corresponding with a man from Tacoma, Washington State. And the relationship deepened, and we decided to marry, and I forged a new family dynamic. So I moved to Tacoma, Washington, and within 1.5 years, I ended up moving to Phoenix, Arizona. Just as my higher self was urging me to all along, I moved to Phoenix, Arizona, without much money, 2 children to care for, not knowing anyone, no job, and it was one of the single best life changes of my entire life. I found work within 3 days and wasn't without work for longer than 3 days in all the 15 years that I lived in that location. So many valuable life experiences and joyous times happened there. Who would have guessed that this was going to happen? I learned a lot from this experience. You cannot make any kind of major life change from logically and rationally thinking. It must come from beyond your intellectual capacity. It must come from your intuitive mind. So watch for these seemingly crazy ideas that pop into your mind, because that is your path. The second major hurdle that must be breached when considering a major life change is the element of fear of the unknown. Take the example of my move to Phoenix, Arizona. I knew no one down there, and I did not have a job lined up. But because it was the right move for me, I quickly met people and found work immediately. The key thing to remember is that you will meet new people and things will work out for you if this is the correct move. That is the ultimate acid test to watch for. If you plan a course of action and there was one roadblock after another, that is how you can tell that that course of action is the wrong one for you. If, on the other hand, seeming miracles of good fortune happen for you and doors swing wide open for you, then you know you're on the right path. The right life change for you will have an electric excitement that surrounds it. Everything will seem to sparkle with wonder and the newness of infinite possibilities. The wrong life change for you will feel depressing, and you will have that sensation that you want to break free of it, but you don't, only to continue on down the wrong path for you until ever deepening states of depression. Don't do this to yourself. Take the risk. You will know you are doing the right thing by the way you feel and how things flow. Trust this and move on to ever better chapters of your life. And one final word here on this topic. Do you know what will happen to you if you do not make the needed life changes? Absolutely nothing. No thrill of a new adventure, no new friends, no new job, no new location, just the same depressing things. Think about that. So go for it. Life is to live. It isn't just about existing. It's about living it to the full. To stay up to date with my latest videos, make sure to subscribe to this free YouTube channel by clicking the red subscription button right below this video. Well, that's it for now. Take care until next time.